Phoebe Stone arrives at the majestic Cornwall Inn in Rhode Island with a suitcase full of her most beautiful clothes and a very dark secret. She doesn't plan on leaving. After a soul-crushing divorce and years of feeling like a background character in her own life, Phoebe has decided that this luxury hotel will be her final stop. She has planned every detail of her exit, wanting it to be quiet, elegant, and, most importantly, solitary. But as she walks into the lobby, she realizes she has accidentally stepped into a war zone of white silk and expensive flowers. The entire hotel has been booked for a week-long wedding extravaganza, and Phoebe is the only guest who isn't part of the wedding people. The silence Phoebe craves is immediately shattered by Lila, the bride. Lila is a whirlwind of high-end anxiety, a woman who has spent years planning the perfect wedding to validate her existence. When she spots Phoebe in the lobby wearing a stunning, vibrant green dress, Lila has a total meltdown. In her mind, Phoebe is a wedding guest who has committed the ultimate sin, wearing a color that wasn't approved by the bride. The confrontation is loud, public, and absurd. For Phoebe, who is literally preparing to end her life, Lila's obsession with dress colors feels like a transmission from a distant, ridiculous planet. Driven out of her room by the noise of the festivities, Phoebe ends up at the hotel bar, where she encounters Lila again. This time, the masks drop. Exhausted by the facade of her life, Phoebe does something she's never done. She tells the absolute, unfiltered truth. When Lila asks why she's really there, Phoebe calmly explains that she came here to die. The reaction isn't what Phoebe expected. Lila doesn't call the police. She doesn't scream. Instead, she is fascinated. In a world where everyone is lying to her about how perfect her wedding is, Phoebe's grim honesty is the most refreshing thing Lila has ever heard. The first act ends with an unexpected pact. Lila, desperate for a true friend amidst the sea of fake smiles, convinces Phoebe to postpone her plan for just 1 week. She offers Phoebe a deal. Stay for the wedding, eat the 5-star food, drink the vintage champagne, and be the one person who tells Lila the truth about her life. Phoebe, caught off guard by Lila's chaotic warmth and the sheer absurdity of the situation, finds herself saying yes. For the first time in months, Phoebe has an appointment she has to keep. She is no longer just a ghost in the hallway. She has been recruited into the most high-stakes performance of all, a wedding. The pact between Phoebe and Lila creates a strange, invisible bridge between two women who couldn't be more different. Lila is a woman who lives entirely in the future, obsessed with the next event, the next photo, the next perfect moment. Phoebe, however, has been living in the past, haunted by the what-ifs of her failed marriage and a career that stalled before it even began. Now they are forced into a shared present. Lila begins to use Phoebe as a human litmus test for reality. She drags Phoebe into secret meetings with caterers and high-stakes dress fittings, demanding that Phoebe provide the raw honesty that her bridesmaids are too terrified to give. Phoebe soon realizes that the wedding people aren't the happy monolith she imagined. Each guest is carrying a heavy trunk of their own drama. There's the groom, Gary, who seems to be undergoing a slow-motion existential crisis, looking at Phoebe with a mix of envy and recognition. There are the bridesmaids, whose smiles are as fragile as their glass flutes. Phoebe, who thought she was the only person in the world with a broken heart, starts to see cracks everywhere. In the hotel's opulent dining rooms and seaside terraces, she begins to hear the whispered secrets of the guests. She becomes an accidental confessor, woman, the woman in the green dress, who listens without judgment because she's already seen the end of the world. As the week progresses, the Cornwall Inn starts to feel less like a luxury prison and more like a sanctuary. Between the gourmet meals Lila insists she eat and the mandatory spa treatments, Phoebe's body begins to wake up before her mind is ready. She finds herself in an unexpected quiet flirtation with Gary's friend, a man who doesn't know her history and treats her like a person with a future. This creates a terrifying friction within her. She feels guilty for enjoying the taste of the wine or the warmth of the sun. She struggles with the feeling that she is betraying her grief, worried that if she smiles, she will lose the only thing she has left, her conviction that life is over. The second act culminates in a midnight heart-to-heart on the beach. Lila, finally dropping the perfect bride persona, confesses that she's not sure she even likes the man she's marrying. She's just terrified of being alone in a world that only values couples. Phoebe, in turn, shares the crushing weight of her own infertility and the way it eroded her sense of self. In this raw exchange of truth, the pills in Phoebe's suitcase start to feel less like a solution and more like a heavy, outdated anchor. But just as a real friendship begins to bloom, a surprise arrival at the hotel threatens to blow Phoebe's cover and force her to face the one person she never wanted to see again. The surprise arrival at the Cornwall Inn is the one person Phoebe didn't account for in her final week, her ex-husband's best friend. His presence is a physical reminder of the life that broke her. The shared dinners, the inside jokes, and the crushing moment her marriage disintegrated. Suddenly, Phoebe isn't just the mysterious truth-teller to the wedding party. She is a woman with a history that people recognize. The anonymity that allowed her to be honest with Lila is gone. She feels exposed, her grief no longer a private sanctuary, but a public spectacle. She retreats to her room, the bottle of pills on the nightstand, feeling like an old friend she's been neglecting. However, the wedding people have become protective of their accidental mascot. Lila, sensing Phoebe's withdrawal, stages a bride intervention. She refuses to let Phoebe hide, dragging her into the center of the pre-wedding gala. In a series of surreal, fast-paced scenes, Phoebe finds herself navigating high society gossip and complex family politics. She realizes that her ex-husband's friend doesn't see her as a failure. He sees her as a tragedy he didn't know how to help. This shift in perspective is jarring. Phoebe begins to understand that the story she told herself, that she was a burden and a disappointment, was just one version of the truth. The tension reaches a breaking point during the night before bonfire on the beach. As the wedding guests share curated stories of love and success, Phoebe is asked to speak. Instead of a polite toast, she delivers a raw, devastatingly beautiful speech about the nature of endings. She talks about how we spend our lives trying to avoid the crash, only to realize that the crash is the only thing that makes us real. The speech silences the crowd. It's a moment of collective catharsis where the wedding people finally stop pretending. For Phoebe, it's a moment of realization. She still has a voice, and people are actually listening. The third act ends with a shocking discovery. While helping Lila with a last-minute crisis, Phoebe finds out that Lila's perfect groom, Gary, has been hiding a secret of his own, one that could cancel the wedding entirely. Gary confesses to Phoebe that he's in love with the idea of the person Phoebe has become this week, someone who is unafraid of the dark. Phoebe is thrust into a moral dilemma. If she tells Lila, she destroys the wedding that gave her a reason to live. If she keeps quiet, she lets her friend enter a marriage built on a lie. As the sun begins to rise on the wedding day, Phoebe realizes that she is no longer planning her death. She is desperately trying to figure out how to handle her life. The wedding day arrives like a tidal wave of white tulle and expensive champagne. But the Cornwall Inn is vibrating with the secrets Phoebe now carries. As the guests gather on the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic, Phoebe finds herself in the middle of a moral storm. She looks at Lila, radiant and terrified in her gown, and realizes that truth is the only gift she is left to give. In a quiet moment before the ceremony, Phoebe confronts Lila with the truth about Gary. But instead of a breakdown, there is a breakthrough. Lila admits she already knew. They are two women who have spent their lives afraid of being too much or not enough. And in that shared honesty, the pressure to be perfect finally snaps. The ceremony is unlike anything the wedding people expected. It's not a scripted performance. It's a messy, honest, and deeply human celebration of choosing to try. Phoebe stands in the back, still wearing her vibrant green dress, no longer a ghost, but a witness. As she watches the exchange of vows, she feels the weight of the pills in her suitcase back in the room. But for the first time, she doesn't think of them as an escape. She thinks of them as a version of herself she no longer needs to be. The world is still loud, her divorce is still real, and her future is still uncertain, but she is there to see the sun hit the water. And that is enough. The reception turns into a wild, cathartic release. The guests, inspired by the raw energy of the week, stop performing and start living. Phoebe dances with Gary, with Lila, and with the man who didn't know her past. She realizes that the Cornwall Inn wasn't a place to die. It was a cocoon. The wedding people weren't her enemies, they were her mirrors. She discovers that even at rock bottom, there is music, there is laughter, and there is the unexpected kindness of strangers who become friends. She doesn't have a plan for Monday, and for the first time in her life, she isn't terrified of the blank page. The story concludes as the last of the fireworks fade over the Rhode Island coast. Phoebe returns to her room, but she doesn't pack her suitcase for a final journey. She packs it for home. She takes the bottle of pills and, in a quiet act of defiance, flushes them away. She leaves a note for Lila, not a goodbye, but a thank you. As she drives away from the Cornwall Inn, the green dress draped over the passenger seat, Phoebe Stone looks into the rearview mirror and sees a woman she finally recognizes. She is a survivor, a truth teller, and most importantly, she is someone who decided to stay for the cake and the life that comes after it.